Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show, it's about dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Beef Season 1, Episode 6. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with Amy's side of things, where we have her, well, for one, dealing with the Fumi aftermath, because now it's like, oh, you turned the codes off, and when did you get to the house? She's like, do you remember what time that was? But Fumi's like, oh, it's all a blur. Amy's kind of worried. It's like, all right, was she there when me and Paul were doing our thing? Which we know she was. She knows what's going on, but she's playing coy, so it's just like, okay. And especially later on when, June was like, oh, can I get some candy? It's like, oh, no, it's too late, honey. And Fumi's like, tell your daddy to get me some candy, and I'll share it with you. It's like, you're doing that just to be an extra dick, but it's like, you know what's what, but you're not saying anything, and you're like, oh, and that moment that happened, I was like, she's gonna blackmail you, isn't she? Like, she knows, and Amy knows she knows, and she knows that Amy knows that she knows, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna lower this over your head, because later on, she's like, hey, we could take this wall out, and the fact of the matter is, she's even the one that threw it out there, like, oh, if you guys are gonna split, and June's like, wait, are you guys gonna get divorced? It's like, first and foremost, that's super jacked up for you to have that, bring that up in front of your grandchild about her parents, but it's also because she was doing that to be coy about it too, which is interesting because she was mainly directing that all at Amy, not realizing Paul's got some stuff with Mia on the side, because it's been a couple weeks. Granted, we don't know if they've slept together. We definitely know Amy and Paul did, but we don't know if it's just been a thing of, hey, he's been jerking it to Mia's picture. I don't know if it's been a couple weeks, so it could be around the time he started liking her photos is when they start talking, because Mia knew, hey, the relationship was kind of on the rocks. But because of his mom's comments, George interpreted those being about him, so he decided, hey, we need to kind of cool it on this. So that's interesting, because Mia's also still looking for trying to find work in other places because of the acquisition of Amy's business. A lot of people ended up quitting, trying to find new jobs and stuff, and Mia's hey, she tried to ask Fumi for help last episode, and this time she was asking George, and he was like, oh, and she's like, you know what, never mind. It's it's such a weird time considering you were just having this conversation about, wait, we can't stop what's going on between us right now. Okay, do you have any references I could do? Could you recommend me to any other place? And it's oh, that's kind of weird. I mean, but isn't any weirder than kind of what's been bubbling beneath you? So what's one more thing? So also, what I thought was so beautiful is when Naomi shows up. Well, because she initially went over because she was actually going to talk to Fumi about everything. And so I love that Amy ended up drugging her mother-in-law just so she'd be passed out. So when the time comes, Naomi confronts her, and Naomi laid it out. She got some details wrong here and there, but boy, oh boy, did she nail some other stuff. She got it 75% right. But the only big difference is she got wrong is she thinks that the person who Amy is sleeping with, having the affair with, is Danny, not knowing about Paul. I was like, oh my God. Because it turns out Bobby, maybe it might have just been Bobby, but it might have been Bobby and Michael were both wearing the Chosen One shirts, their company shirt. So that's what ended up being the link between everything. Because I love that Naomi was like, girl, we can talk about anything. So if there's anything going on, you can talk to me about it. And Amy's like, okay, what are you pushing for? And she was just like, all right, let me drop the act. I know this is what's going on. So, and Amy busts out laughing because it's the funniest thing. It's like, you are so far off, yet you are so close. And she's like, oh my God, I needed that. Now, I don't know if that's fully because, regardless of her getting some of those details wrong, she still got 75% right. So I don't know whether it's a thing of, oh, it's funny because you think I'm banging Danny. He's the last human being on this planet I would bang. That, plus she did get the rest of it right. But it's oh, that's so not going on. Those are several different things that just happen to occur. That's the thing. So many of these occurrences they're all built upon each other. They're not the separate occurrences that Amy wants to make them out to be. They're all connected. They're escalating situations building upon themselves, each other and everything. So, but Naomi's Amy took a dig at her by being yeah, I mean, I get it. You have all this time to do this, I haven't had time to connect the dots because, I've been busy working, and you could, Naomi, it cut her so deep, and she's like, what? But because I do have all the free time in the world, I'm going to work this out, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to find out like the truth behind us, and I'm going to expose you. And then once Jordan finds out, she won't be so quick to want to acquire a company that is surrounded by such liability and stuff like that. So Naomi leaves. Amy's like, damn it, I'm screwed. This is bad. So we tie that in with the Danny stuff. He's at church. Lo and behold, who's there? Michael, Bobby, and Isaac. Because Isaac's the one kind of head honchoing all of this now, no longer Danny. So I guess he's bringing in Michael and Bobby to kind of fill out the roster. Once again, they're kind of his henchmen. So, and I love that he was there, like singing along. It's like, oh, hallelujah. Oh, thank Jesus. And it's like, okay. So he was able to get out of his house situation by using religion as kind of an exemption. So he got some of the money, but he's saying like, oh, don't worry, like Michael, Bobby, I got you on the next one, so we're good. And now you can tell, like, it's that cooler heads and hindsight situation of now Danny's not as cool with it now. He feels bad with just everything that's kind of going on. I mean, first and foremost, he told Bobby and Michael not to do that job. So I don't know if he knows about like the aftermath of everything on the Fumi sides of things. It might just be like he knows they hit up the spot because he didn't really talk about Fumi. So I don't know. They didn't bring up like, oh, the old lady that kind of got injured that shot. I thought Bobby got shot. Maybe he didn't. I could have sworn it looked like he got hit by one of those bullets, but maybe not. Either way, you can tell like Danny's having some reservations about all of this. So, and later on, especially when he's hanging around Edwin and Veronica and Esther and Isaac's like, he's got the gift for gab, and he's talking up Esther, and he ends up telling this story about like not being able to take care of crickets, but Danny found a crow or whatever and was feeding his dead crickets to it. And he's like, yeah, I was super young. Like, Danny's not trying to... I think Danny felt bad because last episode he was getting so hyped up by George saying he's a good person. He felt bad. That's why he called off the job from Michael, and Bobby still did it anyway. I think also Isaac trying to hype him up like that made him go like, nah, man, I'm not... I did. Like, don't look at what I did as something special. And Isaac wants to join the basketball stuff, but like, it's like, oh, no. Like, Edwin's making excuses, but also is Danny being like, yeah, the roster's already full, just kind of leave it alone. So Isaac's really pushing for it. And for him, it's like, yo, like, Esther wants me, and I made Edwin look like a punk. Like, it all worked out. And he ends up sliding some of the money towards Danny, the $100,000, a little bit of the $100,000 he needs to kind of make things happen. So it's like, obviously Danny's appreciative, but it doesn't feel good because, he feels like a bad person, which he is, So, but after that whole situation, he was at home kind of lamenting about it, and he's doing the whole like tossing the coins in the trash or whatever it was he was tossing in the trash, and it led to him and Paul playing horse. And it's like, I was kind of worried that they'd be kind of screwed, but it's like, well, Paul's not in the best place because of the way things played out between him and Amy last episode. So now it's a situation of, like they ended up mending fences, and they had some brother bonding time, which I thought was really beautiful. So when it's all said and done, it's like, Danny's still under the belief that it's Kayla. He doesn't know about Amy. Well, he knows about Amy, but not like the Kayla situation being actually Amy. And so, like, I love that. Like, despite it all, it's like, yeah, things being that they are, Paul still got the... I mean, it wasn't like, oh, this was forever ago. It was probably literally just yesterday. No, it was just yesterday or whatever that things kind of, fell out between him and Amy, and he really, really liked her. So it gave both of them have a very different perspective on things, because obviously he's like, yeah, I kind of come to realize like how important money is. He's like, I want to borrow money. I want to have like a stable job of income, because like his dreams and everything kind of got dashed a little bit because of the conversation he had with Amy. You add on like heartbreak to all of that too. So he's feeling a certain way, and I get the whole, I mean, we all been there where we're just kind of like fresh off the breakup, something was budding, something young, some puppy love and something beautiful was budding, and then you just it gets like immediately cut off at the knees, and you're just kind of like, lamenting and looking at stuff related to your ex, like the butt pic she has, which he immediately takes notices of. he's never, I was no, but he's never seen Amy in that capacity, so he wouldn't recognize, her, but he wouldn't put two and two together. So, but the thing I really loved is the two of them meeting up, Amy and Danny, when it's like hey, I got to talk to you about something, and ended up bringing up the fact is we got to meet, and then meeting, and it's like, right, the neighbor wants to press charges. Both of us are going to be screwed in this department, so you got to take the fall for this and say it wasn't me in the white SUV. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Why would I take the fall for that? She's like, I will pay you. And he's like, oh, he's like, fine, $100,000. And she's like, I was going to pay you 10. He's like, $10. She's like, what? No, you idiot, 10 grand. He's like, well, make it 50. And she's like, 25. If he had probably told the sentimental reasons behind it, maybe she would have been more inclined. But I mean, I doubt Paul talked about Danny's plans or what he has planned, because he probably hasn't even told Paul. But I mean, she knows a little bit about Danny, but all of like Paul's issues with Danny just reinforces how she felt about Danny. So, but I love that once again, they are so similar. And I love him being like, wait, are you threatening me? She's like, no, I'm not threatening you. If I was threatening you, I was like, do this or I will motherfucking bury you. And then, like, once again, they're so similar. And then they popped off on that guy. He's like, are you guys going to move or what? And he's like, I'm going to stay here if I want to, bitch. And she's like, yeah, you shriveled up nut. And he's like, fuck you. And he's like, wait, what? What the fuck you say? She's like, say it again. Say it again. It's like, and he's like, oh, you motherfucking psycho. It's like, no, you're the psycho. And then they go back into their cars. I'm like, once again, I think you two are so similar to each other. But maybe because you're so similar, it never would work out. But part of me is almost like, would that be a thing? Like, I don't know, because I feel by the end of this, Amy is going to like be trying to fix her marriage. I'm probably not going to throw away all those years of marriage down the tube, especially not for Danny. But they're so intertwined with each other. They're spending so much time destroying each other's lives. She even said like, hey, I want to help you out because, hey, you're a small business owner. She's like, I'm a small business owner. But then took the opportunity to also shit on him by being like, well, if I'm a small business owner, you're a micro business owner. He's like, no. It's not small business. It's a magnum opus business. And she's like, yeah, whatever. But because of it all, Danny agreed. He's like, fine, I'll take the $25,000. So, because she was like, at one point, she was even like, later on, she suggested like, oh, why don't you just paint? Well, I'll go ahead and talk about it. On her way home after that meeting, Naomi called her and she's like, oh my God, girl, I'm so sorry. Fumi told me that it was her driving in the white and it wasn't even you. She took the fall for it. And it's almost like, wait, Fumi overheard everything. It's like, oh, I thought I really drugged her up. But it's like, no, Fumi overheard everything and took the fall. And I guess in the grand scheme of things, the reason why is because, well, she doesn't want Amy to take the fall for this because it could jeopardize the money situation she's in. Because once again, she can benefit from Amy kind of paying her off. So, Fumi took the fall for her, and it's like, yeah, but we'll stop at nothing to find the person in the red truck, and it's like, okay, cool. And for Amy in that regard, it's like, oh, everything worked out. Now I've also got Naomi off my back, but, I mean, it sucks for Danny, but it's kill or be killed. Got to look out for herself, so I don't have to worry about me anymore. But then she had this moment later on when she's at the house with June, who ended up throwing up some Hershey's and blaming it on his kid Sebastian. And in that moment, George and Amy are picking it up together, and it's almost like some flings on her face, and she starts laughing because it feels like probably like those early days again. Like they are kind of finding their way back to each other despite everything going on. And they're trying to reassure June that no matter what ends up happening, we might not always be happy all the time, but at the end of the day, mommy and daddy love each other. George and Amy love each other, and I thought that was such a beautiful family moment. So it's like, I think she's probably going to put all the Paul stuff in the rear view and kind of move forward with trying to fix her family. So while that ended up happening, I love that we cut to Danny like looking up it's like, oh, looking up an Asian lady for some porn, and then he thinks back to his bro having that picture, and I'm like, I don't know, man, that's weird, taking like spank bank material from your brother. That feels weird. I mean, especially with the way I phrase it like that, like taking something of his, like I don't know, man. Like it's essentially like in your mind, it's like taking the porn that your brother has, and then you're just like beating off to it. It's still weird because you have to like you send it directly to your phone just so you can beat off. Once again, if you knew that it was Amy's butt that you were about to beat off to, which I thought it was so cosmically beautiful that she actually ended up calling at a time, and he was even like, "Are you watching me?" And she's like, "What? No." Are you watching me? Like, why would you even say that? You know, and it's like, right. So my circumstances have cleared up, so I'm not going to pay you anymore. You kind of have to look out for yourself. So, cool, deuces. You should probably paint your truck. He's like, I did. After you did damage to it, writing all that crap on it. Remember, she's like, well, good luck, Danny, and bounced. I was like, well, that sucks. And so Danny's looking at it. I was like, part of me was wondering, like, is he going to try and double screw Amy over by, like, going like, no, this really is her? I mean, he tried that before. That kind of blew up in his face. I mean, to be fair, it got Naomi on Amy's back, but I wasn't quite sure where things were going to go from here. And then we find out about Isaac. That was such a beautiful twist. Isaac's like, yo, I got locked up. I'm looking at, 5 to 6 years or something like that, maybe even more. And it might even been like 5 to 10. And it's like, oh, what happened? It's like that road rage thing, they think it was me. I was like, oh, Danny. He was like, what? Because he even said, like, it had to be you. Danny's like, it couldn't be me. Like, come on, man. That's some mastermind diabolical shit. Like, I can't think that far ahead. I was like, wow, that is a piece of shit thing to do. But I think it's also because, once again, he had his reservations because he saw Paul like hanging around like Michael and Bobby and just kicking it. And I think for him, it's like, right, I want us to be set, but I also don't want to drag Paul into this BS. You know, it's just like the scam stuff that he's up to. Like, I want to try and make things as honest as possible, especially because he felt bad about the church thing. Now it's also like me and my bro are good again. And I also want to drag him into some BS. So I'm going to try and rectify this. So I love that we have that conversation between Isaac and Danny, and Danny's trying to put it all on Amy. It's like, oh, she must have gotten she got the license plate, which we know she did. So instead Amy is the obvious choice to make it. And yeah, he's like, because it couldn't have been me, because it's like, oh, you think I'm a possibility, but it's like, oh, Amy must have done it. And honestly, to us as the audience, he did it in the most unconvincing way, but it was enough to convince Isaac, like, oh, I never betray you, bro. So it's like, yo, like, he tried to tell the police that Danny was the one that was driving, but Danny's like, well. And I even love him being like, yeah, the Filipinos in here are turning on me, bro. I need to get out of here. But it's because of Isaac's criminal record. They weren't going to listen. I mean, it was already bad enough. Once again, he was on parole. Now he was on house arrest. And you just add more and more to the trouble he had already gotten into because of Vegas. Now it's like, yeah, he's definitely screwed. So not only did Amy kind of clear herself of this, now Danny has. But the problem is, Isaac's not going to take this lying down. His lawyer might come around and be able to kind of fix this situation, and it might blow up in Danny's face. Maybe some of that church. I don't know. Isaac could end up being a thorn in your side where he comes back and blows up your whole thing. It might not just be you. He might end up blowing up Amy's situation as well. I mean, once again, it also comes down to when and if Danny ever finds out the person that Paul was hooking up with was Amy, you know, so. But I love that while that's all happening, like, he ended up playing the basketball game, him, Bobby, Michael, and Paul against Edwin and his crew, and Edwin, like, at first he was just like, still keeping it clean verbally, but then he like flipped out and just started cussing up a storm in front of everybody. He's like, fucking fuck. And it's like, oh, cool. And Danny won the scoring shot. So it's just kind of a win all around in that regard for Danny. It's like, oh, things have kind of took a turn and it kind of turned up in a good way. Picking up with the Amy and Fumi thing I thought was interesting, where it's like, oh, they went on a shopping spree, and then Amy was talking to Fumi, and Fumi's like, okay, let me be frank with you. Yes, like, me and George's dad, because George ended up selling the particular piece that his someone's trying to buy before, the one that Jordan was trying to buy before, just to kind of cover for her. And she's like, oh yeah, I didn't want him to feel like he needed to do that. But because Amy was like, right, can we talk about the elephant in the room? And for her, it's like, what is the elephant? And so Fumi's like, she talks about her and her husband, about their circumstance of like how well they work together. But it's like the moment you start worrying about stuff is when you should be worried. That's when things kind of consume you. So they just kept ignoring their money issues over and over and over and over again. And it kind of led them to be where they are now. But for her, it's like, yeah, but look where I am right now. I just went on a shopping spree getting everything I want. She said, basically, your perception, it's all about perception. There is no certified truth. Your reality is kind of based on your perception. So it's like, what do you want from your family? What do you want for yourself? And now that's going to be the thing Amy is going to have to really like answer going forward, because that's been the big thing of just like, you know, what do you want at the end of the day? So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.